Hello everyone, welcome back. I have two fabrics for today's project. One is this lightweight viscose on the left, and the other is this shiny satin on the right. My plan is to make a tiered skirt and a bonnet. I started by folding the satin so I could cut two circles at the same time. My idea was to make the bonnet reversible because all the bonnets I own have a silky outside, but the inside isn't as smooth. As always, Lotti was supervising everything from the corner. I've been wanting to make a bonnet that actually fits my hair properly for a very long time. I didn't use a pattern for this, I just watched a short video first to make sure I was doing everything correctly. It's actually a very simple project and I can definitely see myself making a few more in different colors. For the elastic, I made a casing and threaded it through the edge. It turned out really nicely, although next time I think I would like to try using a wider exposed elastic instead of hiding it inside the casing. I think that would be a little bit more comfortable and keep the fabric from bunching up as much. But for a first try, I'm really happy with how it turned out. And yes, maybe it's a little strange that I'm showing you what I wear to sleep. After finishing the bonnet, it was time for a quick snack break. I usually have 2 hard-boiled eggs in the morning, so I was definitely ready for breakfast. Lotti always knows when I'm having eggs. The sound of cracking them is enough to get her attention because she absolutely loves eggs. She was still very sleepy that morning, so instead of begging too much, she just stayed on her little couch and watched me with her puppy eyes. Next, it was time to start the skirt. I have made this skirt before, so I grabbed my notebook with all the measurements. I wanted to make it with 3 tiers, and luckily I had already written down the dimensions for each one. A tiered skirt is actually a very beginner-friendly project. You're basically just cutting rectangles, so you don't have to be perfectly precise because everything gets gathered anyway. We've been having some really warm summer days lately, and I realized I'm missing a long, breezy skirt in my wardrobe. I wanted something light and comfortable to wear in the heat, and I thought this warm salmon would be the perfect color for it. You may have noticed that I didn't iron the fabric before cutting it. A skirt like this uses quite a lot of fabric, and honestly, ironing the whole thing first felt like a bit too much work. And somehow I accidentally recorded the chair instead of myself cutting the fabric, so you missed that part. But after cutting the rectangles, I ironed each piece separately. My thinking was that if any edges ended up a little wonky, I could always trim them once everything was flat. Luckily, they turned out just fine. I also spent some time deciding whether I wanted to add pockets. I usually love pockets on trousers and shorts, but not so much on skirts and dresses. And because this fabric is so lightweight and slightly transparent, I knew you'd probably be able to see the outline of the pocket through the fabric. So I decided to leave them out this time. Now enjoy a little montage of me sewing what felt like endless gathering stitches. Each tier has to be gathered separately. It's not difficult at all, but after a while it does become a little repetitive. I think I've realized that I actually enjoy slightly more challenging sewing projects because doing the exact same thing over and over gets a bit boring. Once all the gathering stitches were finished, I started pinning the tiers together and gathering each section to fit. Again, not difficult, just time-consuming. I had YouTube playing in the background just to make the repetitive part a little more fun. Eventually, Lotti decided I had been sewing for long enough and let me know it was time for a break. So we went outside into the garden to use our little agility setup. We are definitely not training for competitions. She just genuinely enjoys having little jobs to do, which is very typical for a corgi. Whenever she has lots of energy, this is one of her favorite things. It tires her out surprisingly quickly. It was also a really hot day, so afterwards I made 2 cold brews, one for me and one for my husband. Of course, Lotti was curious about those too. Back inside, one of the skirt panels was already finished, so I just needed to finish the seams and put everything together. By then it was getting dark, and Lotti had settled down next to me, patiently waiting for bedtime. The next morning I finished the waistband and hemmed the skirt, so it was finally coming together. After sewing all those long gathering stitches, I ran out of thread pretty quickly. When I went to refill the bobbin, I realized I didn't have any empty bobbins left. It's such a small thing, but it's also so annoying. You only need one item, but it almost feels silly placing an online order just for bobbins. Then you end up adding all sorts of things to your basket that you definitely didn't plan on buying. I wish there was a haberdashery in the village where I live, so I could quickly pop in whenever I need those little sewing bits and bobs. So if you have any good tricks for situations like that, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear them. And with that, the skirt was finally finished. I took it outside for a few final shots, but Lotti quickly decided that this was all about her. She immediately started running around, rolling in the grass, and having the best time. So naturally, she ended up stealing the show.